Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muizz, and today I'll be discussing my latest book, which is called No Sounds, Only Signs. Basically, I set my book in 1941 during World War II. It's has a relatively dark theme, and it has a dark and unpleasant side to it. Like it shows the unpleasant reality of what it used to be at that time. My work is mostly inspired by the film Inglourious Bastards by Quentin Tarantino, and it has three acts. The first scene, the entire movie, in fact, is set in the of Nazi Germany, and it involves three main characters: Aziel Benedict, Heinrich Zimmerman, and Sergeant Frederick Gunther, who is the main antagonist. Aziel Benedict is, I've depicted him to be a rather scared and mousy character, which in all fairness is justified due to the inhuman and horrific treatment that the Jews and the people of the Jewish heritage received from the Nazis. Heinrich Zimmerman is a mostly confused person who's trying to put on a brave face for his family and everyone else, which ends up, and he faces problems, but he is mostly confused. And in all honesty, I see a little part of myself in him. The sergeant is greatly inspired by one of the characters that was played by my favorite actor Christopher Waltz. His character Hans Landa in the aforementioned movie Inglourious Bastards is not just the inspiration, but in a way a different version of the character. In my opinion, his method of delivering lines is not only unorthodox, but has a different touch to it. This contributes to the impact that his lines have, especially if it's a menacing and sinister character where that is being played, which in his case is honestly an understatement. Which, as you will come to find out in the book, he has a method of getting under the skin of the characters, and he will do pretty much anything to get what he wants. He's a cold-blooded killer, as to say. Personally, as I'm sure you can tell, the sergeant is my favorite character in the book. His cold yet calculated personality allows him to keep the other characters on edge and on, as you'd say, a mental roller coaster, as he keeps throwing everyone for a loop, and he keeps toying with them as a cat would toy with its prey, as if he knows what is going to happen. He would know what he is going to do. However, he is still going to play around with the other person, and he's still going to, as you say, screw with them mentally. I personally chose this topic as it was not only an era that greatly intrigues me, but a time that truly molded the future. A time that paved the way for the future generations. And it didn't just affect the thinking of the people, but it also affected everything from technological change to the treatment of people for different beliefs. Because imagine if you would be hunted down and your entire family would be slain for just believing in a certain religion, because Hitler unified the entire Nazi Germany. His Third Reich was basically based upon creating a super race of Aryan people of Aryan descent, which had the key characteristic of blonde hair and blue eyes, which in my opinion is a bit funny because Hitler himself was not one. I did a reasonable amount of extensive research for this book, and I not only watched different movies, I watched different documentaries, I researched a lot on Google. My main credit goes to YouTube and Wikipedia because they were the most credible resources I could find, as I couldn't find an actual Holocaust survivor, and in all honesty, I don't want to, because the stories that you can see, the etches of time on their face are more than enough to horrify one. I gave this book, as you'll come to find out later, a particularly grisly and dark ending, which, spoiler alert, involves the main protagonists and their family, including their children, to be killed and burnt alive by the antagonist. Because that's, in my opinion, just frankly the way the world is. You don't always win, things just don't always work out for you, and sometimes the bad guy wins. Um, this book, I spent a lot of time on it, and I kept thinking of a reasonable ending. I My mind played with the thought of maybe the or the protagonist outnumbering or outmaneuvering the uh, enemies, the villains, the German army. I thought of them hiding and maybe escaping, but it didn't end that way for the many millions of people that were killed in the Holocaust. If you think that the Jews were, frankly, the main victims, they were in a sense, but they weren't the only ones. There were countless lives taken in the war, and it was just inhumane, as to speak, overall. Um, that's it from my end. Thank you.